All right. Nice to see you all here. Thank you for making it out on this windy morning. Quick intro. My name's Andrea. I run the capital team at the Solana Foundation. And what that means in practice is that myself and my colleagues spend a lot of time thinking about who or how can teams within the ecosystem that are looking for funding get access to the right type of funding at the right time. And so with that in mind, we're always on the lookout for innovative ways to do that. And RPGF is an experiment that we're very excited about sort of trying out and seeing how it plays out. Daljit, why don't you introduce yourself and sort of give an idea of what retroactive public goods funding actually means?
That sounds great. Yeah, my name is Daljit. I'm one of the co-founders of OpenBlock Labs. And we've been mostly focused on data-driven incentive optimization. So when we give a lot of incentives out in the world of crypto, right? Bitcoin is a huge incentive mechanism. And since then, there's been all sorts of proactive and incentive mechanisms. But one thing that's somewhat unexplored is retroactive incentives, basically incentivizing past work. And that's the idea of retroactive public good funding. So what is RPGF? Basically, what we have is a bunch of open source and public goods that have been created by really prominent members of the Solana community. And folks, app developers, developers, end users, validator providers, all of them are using these open source tools and products. And what that's enabling is it's enabling a larger Solana economy and ecosystem. And because of that, we want to basically find a way to give some of this revenue back to the open source providers that are making, open source creators that are making this all possible, that are enabling developers to be way more productive and end users to understand what Solana is all about. And so how can we continue to promote open source development? And that's the idea of retroactive public good funding, of providing a sustainable income stream for those that are creating all of these wonderful public goods.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we give a lot of grants to projects that are going to do something. And so we do it with milestones and sort of look towards the future. But there's a lot of value in actually sort of incentivizing past contributions as well, rewarding those past contributions. So that's where this idea originally came from.
Yeah, and incentivizing public goods shouldn't be foreign to anybody here. If you were to say, hey, we don't want highways, or we don't want roads, or we don't want hiking trails blazed, and education, public school systems, or universal healthcare, you could live in a world like that, and you might be able to make it work for yourself. However, it makes having public roads and having public goods makes life a lot easier for everybody, and it gives everybody so many advantages. And so that's the same concept here. How can we basically promote and make those that are creating these public goods have a sustainable income stream, so that we can have the equivalent of roads and highways and public schools in the Solana ecosystem. And so we started off with $250K in Sol, and as our first experiment to retroactive public good funding.
Yeah, and this, to be clear, this is also an idea that has already existed in other chains and other ecosystems. And Daljit came and we were super excited to try a version of this on Solana. So this is round one. It's sort of the first time we've tried a lot of these sort of fundamental concepts of quadratic funding, of getting delegates to vote, and again, of this idea of really rewarding past contributions. So Daljit, why don't you actually walk us through how this works in practice?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. Basically, folks nominate projects that they believe are public goods. We've created a small consortium of delegates, about 30 or so delegates, that we think have the long-term view of Solana. And
And OpenBlock Labs has built a voting platform and tooling to make all of this easy to manage and handle. And finally, we have a Solana Foundation, which has given the first funding source into RPGF. Obviously, they shouldn't be the only one. Solana Foundation isn't the only one that's a beneficiary of open source in Solana. All the app developers, the validators, etc., are, and so hopefully there are more funding sources for these for RPGF in the future. But we'll go into that.
So if I was a project and I thought I had an impact on the ecosystem, like, could I apply? What are the restrictions? What are the criteria in this round?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we got a lot of applicants, but there are some criteria specifically around making sure that it's a free open source offering. I think that is something, and that it is truly a public good. I think there are other ways to acquire capital for various other projects, but this pool of capital is specifically focused on open source funding.
Yeah, and I know in my experience, so the foundation focuses on public goods all the time. The issue with the concept of a public good sometimes is that it's a little vague, right? It can mean different things to different people. And so the definition we went with this specific experiment was a combination of the project being actively maintained and either it having provided a significant open source contribution or it effectively providing a significant free source, free tier for community members. So the idea here is how can we reward things that wouldn't exist without public goods funding?
Yeah, so OpenBlock Labs built a few products to help applicants be nominated, for applicants to and projects to provide a lot of information about the impact that they have created, and a way for delegates to easily source through projects and their impact and vote. Delegate time is super valuable. These are some of the most prominent leaders in our community. And so we wanted to kind of streamline their voting process.
Yeah. I think when it came to choosing delegates for this first round, it was very important for us to pick people who would both have sort of an innate understanding of what public goods within the Solana ecosystem look like, as well as people who sort of have the influence to promote this program to the rest of the ecosystem. So if we decide to run this in the future, there's sort of a strong foundation to build on top of. So that's it. I know, for a little context, this has come together, like this idea has probably come together as a whole just in the last couple months, even though we've talked about it for a while. And so there are definitely some challenges around timelines that we'd like to sort of improve on in the future. But in general, this whole idea of getting strong community members and leveraging their expertise with funding ideas like Quadratic funding, I think is a very unique approach to sort of a retroactive funding program on Solana. Can you walk us through a little bit what Quadratic funding actually means as part of this, or Quadratic voting?
Yeah, you read my mind. That's exactly what I was thinking. We're running kind of two experiments at the same time. One is this is a retroactive incentive program that is not common at all in the ecosystem. But the second is that instead, the ecosystem, the crypto community at large is a one coin, one vote ecosystem, most broadly. And that's very different than your typical government that's typically one vote, one person. So you have one vote, one person on one hand, which if you are super passionate about something, the most you can give is one vote. But on the other hand, with one coin, one vote, if you have a lot of tokens, you can have an outsized impact just because of your economic power. So what we're kind of doing is using quadratic funding or quadratic voting, and that lets you still have some sort of more impact than one person, one vote, but it is dulled in the sense and muted in the sense that you can't just, if you are have the most economic power, that you don't have all of the voting power. So we're really excited about trying out quadratic voting here, and moving and trying different things besides one coin, one vote in the crypto ecosystem.
Sweet. Okay, so generally that's how the program works. Can you give us an overview as to how it actually played out?
Yeah. So we were very thrilled with the number of projects we got. We got 100 plus applicants. About 36 of them received funding, and we selected about 30 delegates. These are household names in the Solana ecosystem, and by and large, everybody wanted to contribute and participate. And so from the delegate perspective and from the project applicants perspective, we felt like we had great adoption for the first round. So super excited about the momentum here.
And I know we had sort of a combination of different categories. Can you walk us through some of that?
Yeah, so we kind of chose these categories as categories that we think we value a lot and think can grow our ecosystem if we double down on these categories. So this is UX and adoption, making it easy for new users to enter Solana, the developer ecosystem, governance, and Solana tech stack. So these were the 4 categories that every project kind of had to fit into, and we provided an allocation of the broader budget according to the number of projects that were in each category.
Can you walk us through a little bit how you picked these 4 categories?
Yeah, I think so. These 4, we care a lot about all 4 of them. We think can drive the Solana ecosystem forward. Developers, for example, is something, and developer adoption is something that Solana cares deeply about. Same with UX. These are huge differentiations from other blockchains, and so these are areas that having public good funding can add a huge amount of leverage to grow in these vectors.
Awesome. Okay, and so let's talk about who actually got the funding.
Yeah. So we did all of this work, and at the end of the day, we were kind of looking at is this a mechanism that is actually going to be driving any of the things that we know and we care about and has helped so many developers' lives? Is it going to help those projects? And we were really pleased with the results. These are, if you talk to any developer in the Solana ecosystem, the top projects in this list are ones that they use probably on a daily, multiple times a day basis. And so, Anchor or Codigo, these are really important projects in our ecosystem. And so we were pleased with the allocations going into these projects and them getting the allocation that they so deserve.
Awesome. Okay, so let's shift a little bit towards this. This is how it worked up to this point. How does the funding get distributed, and what happens now that these projects have been selected?
Yeah, so we're communicating with all of the teams to make sure that as we close out voting, tally up the results, and then build out the allocations that they are given the funding that they deserve. It's very important that they go to the right people and the right projects, and so we're coordinating with Solana Foundation and others to kind of make sure that that's done in an appropriate way. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's talk about takeaways.
Yeah. So what went well? I mean, this is the first experiment in this regard, and it's been amazing to see the reception. 100 plus project applicants. All of the delegates who are so busy preparing for Breakpoint, finding the time to vote, and caring a lot about open source and public goods on Solana, as well as we've had a really awesome time working with Solana Foundation, Solana Labs, and great to kind of build that relationship as well.
Yeah, I think from our perspective on the grants capital team at the Solana Foundation, this can be an awesome sort of puzzle piece in the broader equation of how teams get funded, right? So, for example, if you're a new project, you might apply for an instant grant from Super Team. If you're slightly more established, then you come and get a grant from the foundation. And then once you sort of start building this flywheel of public goods for the ecosystem, then something like RPGF can come into play, right? So you show and prove impact. You nominate yourself for something like this, and then you can continue nominating yourself every round. So it sort of provides a source of revenue for projects, even though they might not, in of themselves, be revenue-generating businesses, right? And so that's sort of the idea, a high-level idea. And it's super important for us to work with a lot of contributors from around the ecosystem, because a lot of the funding mechanisms in Solana right now have a single decision maker, right? So the foundation, it's basically the grants team mostly decides. If you're looking at even Super Team, for example, right, there is someone who runs that program there. But for something like RPGF and a couple other programs within the ecosystem, the decision-making gets distributed to a number of different delegates or people responsible, which means you have more of the community's voice in what actually gets funded. And you avoid the issues of centralization and fairness and sort of favoritism that could arise in other systems. So this and something like this is actually super important, in my view, to the broad general funding landscape in Solana. Okay, so this seems to have gone pretty well for round one. What things did not maybe go as well?
Yeah, that sounds great. You know, it's really important to find metrics that these projects can report to the delegates that show their impact to Solana itself. You know, if an open source project says, "Hey, I got X amount of GitHub stars," well, were those GitHub stars, you know, from another ecosystem, or were they from Solana developers? So we want to make sure that those metrics are further vetted and there's easy information for delegates to make decisions from. This entire RPGF round one was condensed because we really wanted to get it out by Breakpoint. So we had just under a month to kind of get everything going. Hopefully there's more lead up time, more people know about this and can participate. The other is there some sort of 2-layer nomination potentially here where we don't have to, when there's some sort of vetting that's done initially, and then so delegate time can be used for the most important decisions. And yeah, we're just generally very excited. Can more ecosystem projects and other ecosystem partners participate in this in terms of they're huge benefactors of the open source ecosystem on Solana, and so can they be other potential funding sources as well? So a lot of areas for growth and enhancement here.
One question I had was, you mentioned 36, 38 projects will get funding through this round one program, but over 100 applied. Why didn't almost 100 projects get funding?
Yeah, basically, so there's a lot of projects that initially applied, but there's obviously some of them are not as complete as others, and so I think that we really will push and continue to advocate to projects that, hey, if completing a solid application makes a huge difference in how delegates understand the project and the impact. And so as the more they can tie towards impact and the application as a whole, I think will really help them get funding.
Cool. We have 1 more minute left. Let's talk about what comes next.
Yes. So this has been a great, we've had so many firsts. First Solana RPGF, first non-coin driven governance, going with a quadratic voting and these delegates. First attempt at retroactively giving incentives instead of proactively. Really, we just want to make sure that the open source ecosystem continues to thrive, that public goods continue to thrive, that new builders come into the space and think we can go to RPGF and build public goods and still feel like it's a success. And so we're just really excited to promote public goods and open source on Solana.
All right, last thing, where can people find out more?
openblocklabs.com/Solana has all the information.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Daljit. Appreciate it. Thank you all in the audience and those watching from their hotel rooms, probably. That's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.